Hello everyone, my name is Connor Burrell,
And I'm Akshay Kulkarni.
and today we will be discussing key concept 3.3, increased economic productive capacity and its consequences.
So before I talk about India specifically, I kind of just wanted to outline consequences of increased economic productive capacity in a more general sense to promote more understanding. So again, generally, as an empire grows economically or advances in the technologies that they are able to develop, there are often serious social implications that follow subsequently. These social consequences include wars that are often started as a result of a surplus of resources and greed for more, or a geographic area not having enough resources and needing to fight other regions to gain these resources. Also, as a society advances economically, the need for labor also increases subsequently. And this often invariably leads to coerced labor of some sort, such as slavery. So now let's move on to specifically India and how the economic rise of India was first sparked. So there are three real periods of major growth in Indian history, each following after each other as the civilization has advanced. The first of these three real periods of major growth was the ancient Indian period, which was the period where the caste system was first developed and specialized labor was assigned for each of these castes. This was the first form of organized social structure that India had and resulted in economic growth in that each caste was able to perform a specific task. For example, the Vaishyas were in charge of the trade and agriculture, while the classes lower to them were the servant classes assisting the Vaishyas with their trade. This led to explosive economic growth as every member of the society had a job to fulfill and were able to remain productive. Furthermore, as the society advanced, subcastes called the jatis were formed as technologies were developed.
The second real period of major growth in Indian history was the classical period. During this period, two major dynasties were established. First was the Maurya dynasty. The Maurya dynasty was established with a stable, centralized government, allowing for the development of advanced trade networks. The introduction of a nationally administered tax system generated consistent revenue for the government, enabling them to invest in infrastructure and expand the empire. The economy of this time period primarily focused on agriculture and animal rearing, and the dynasty also participated in the export of commodities such as silk, textiles, and species to places like Bactria and Persia. The second dynasty of the classical period was the Chandragupta dynasty. Following the dissolution of the Maurya dynasty, which collapsed due to financial troubles resulting from costly soldier and governmental salaries, the Chandragupta dynasty was established with a centralized government put in place. Similar to the Maurya dynasty, the primary activities of the dynasty were agriculture and trade. Most industries were assigned to various trade guilds, which in turn held economic and political influence. These trade guilds often had private militias and were headed by a chief craftsman or dathaka. Such industries included textiles, ivory, and bone carving, and the mining of copper, silver, and gold. Of course, when you have economic growth and consequences, there is a sort of connection between the two, a reason for which the consequences resulted. And there were social implications for these consequences. The greatest social implications occurred during the ancient Indian period, during the time of the caste system, because the people born into their caste were condemned to live often horrible and linear lives, purely for the sake of economic growth. Today, we often take for granted the choice that we have in deciding the course of our lives by being able to choose professions, but the jobs that the Indians had during the ancient period were based on what caste system they were born in. The members of the lower caste were forced into doing their work and working for their superiors, not unlike slaves, from the minute they were born. Again, this was maintained because without this structure in place, the economy would have fallen. The economic growth also indirectly led to the society being patriarchal in nature, as it was assumed that the men were the only gender capable of handling the money and power in the society, meaning the women were forced to be almost loyal servants to the men.
So now we're going to discuss how the economic growth of India led to warring over limited resources, as is a more general consequence towards the creation of a surplus in empire. So the rapid economic growth resulting from a reliable agricultural surplus following the invention of more efficient agricultural implements and processes allowed for India to begin investing in its infrastructure and military. After the domestic economy within current land boundaries climaxed, the people of India sought to expand their empire and begin a period of conquest. The conquest of other people further contributed to the wealth of the Indian economy, thus allowing for them to invest in even more and continue to reap benefits. However, conquest and conflict was not the way of the Indian societies. Once the subcontinent had been unified, they instead focused primarily on trade with other countries and thus became a peaceful nation. The accumulation of wealth led to envy, and thus other people came to India, seeking to conquer and plunder. Consequently, India engaged in many wars and conflicts with other societies, seeking to take advantage of their trade-stimulated wealth.
And that about concludes Key Concept 3.3. Thank you all for listening. We hope you learned something new.
Tune in next time to learn some more great AP World history content. See ya.